This video may be the most important video that I've done on this channel. And after I do this video, I might not have a need to do any more videos on this channel based on how powerful this video is and my purpose of making this channel. So let me give you the backstory first on what I'm about to show you. So back in January 2023, I was watching the annual meeting with my wife at the time. And at this point, I was still a Jehovah's Witness, but I knew it was a fraudulent organization. So you could say I was a PMO at the time. So when I was watching this annual meeting with my wife at the time, I noticed that Brother Loesch kept excessively repeating the same word over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So after about maybe 5 minutes of him repeating the same word over and over and over and over, I started to think that that was a little suspicious, that he was doing a lot more than just trying to emphasize a point. So by the end of the talk, I had realized that it was a hypnotic session. And because I was fully awake at this point, that I could see right away that this was some sort of hypnosis. And then when I looked at my wife to see her reaction, or my wife at the time, I could see that as a full-in Jehovah's Witness, that she was completely just brainwashed. And when you're brainwashed, you have no idea that you are brainwashed. Just as when I was brainwashed, I didn't know I was brainwashed at the time. But I could see that she was just brainwashed, and I could clearly see that this was a hypnotic session. So a couple of weeks ago, I recalled this talk to mind. I remembered actually watching this, so I decided to research it, to find it again, so I could look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And when I watched this a second time, I was more convinced that this indeed, no doubt about it, is a hypnotic session caught on video right on jw.org. And what you're going to see they do in this hypnotic talk is actually the basis of this whole religion. Now, I know that's a bold claim to make, but if you watch this video to the end, you're going to see indeed that this is the basis on this whole religion, how all the brainwashing works. And to get deeper into it, I'm going to have to make a part 2, getting into all the technical parts of it. But on this part, I'm just going to show you the actual video and explain a couple of things after. So before I play it, I want to show you, or I want to tell you what to look out for so that you can see the hypnotic session in place. So what Brother Loesch is going to do is he's going to repeat the word truth over and over and over and over and over. And he starts off talking about just like the definition of what it means, what truth means. Then hypnotically, once he said this word over and over and over, he then transitions from the Bible being truth versus the actual definition of truth. Then he continues to repeat this word, getting the Jehovah's Witnesses in a more of a hypnotic state. Then at the end, he transitions to how they call their religion the truth, and that the truth, which is their religion, is the exact equivalent of the very definition of something that's truth. And you're going to see how he hypnotically goes from the definition of truth to convincing the Jehovah's Witnesses that their religion called the truth is the exact equivalent, is the very definition of truth itself. And the truth doesn't change. So that's what he's going to do. So now that you know what you're looking out for, I'm going to now play this video. And I added a counter so that you can see excessively that how he repeats this word is beyond any normal talk. It's actually hypnotic.
Now we're going to enjoy the first of the talks by members of the governing body. And this one will be delivered by Brother Garrett Loesch. He has a very interesting theme. supported by the pillar of truth. Brother Lish, please.
Is the following statement true or false? Truth is relative. That statement is not relatively but absolutely false. Some think that something is truth for one person, but not truth for another person. Many religious organizations claim to have the truth. However, between them, there are many contradicting teachings. Is this just another evidence that all truth is relative? That there's no absolute truth? No. The truth is that truth is not relative, it is absolute. Those who say truth is relative are not only relatively but absolutely wrong. The Hebrew word for truth, emet, is often rendered truth and may designate what is firm, trustworthy, stable, or faithful. The Greek word for truth, aletheia, originates with a word meaning not concealed. So the truth often involves the revealing of that which was formerly hidden. Jesus said, according to Luke 12, verse 2, "But there's nothing carefully concealed that will not be revealed, and nothing secret that will not become known." There are over 70 places in the gospel accounts where Jesus is said to have used the unique expression to emphasize the truthfulness of his words. He would often say amen to introduce a sentence. The corresponding Hebrew word meant certain, true. Notes the New International Dictionary of New Testament Theology, quote, "By introducing his words with amen, Jesus labeled them as certain and reliable. He stood by them and made them binding on himself and his hearers." The New International Dictionary of New Testament Theology, Volume 3, page 901 says, quote, "Many people try to unmask everything in the belief that no one and nothing can genuinely lay claim to truth. Truth can indeed be found. We need to display a humble submission to truth whenever and wherever it emerges. Such openness to truth is required of those who worship the God of truth. Reverence for truth ensures honesty in a man's dealings with his neighbor, both in word and deed. This is the attitude to which both the Old Testament and the New Testament bear witness." End of quote. Does the truth ever change? That question was raised by V.R. Ruggiero in his book, The Art of Thinking. His answer is no. To quote him, "It may sometimes seem to that it changes, but on closer inspection it will be found not to." Yes, the truth never changes. Consider, he says, the case of the authorship of the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. For centuries, Christians and Jews alike believed that the book had a single author. In time, this view was challenged and eventually replaced by the belief that as many as 5 authors contributed to Genesis. Then, in 1981, the results of a 5-year linguistic analysis of Genesis were published, stating that there's an 82% probability of single authorship, as originally thought. Has the truth about the authorship of Genesis changed? No. Only our belief has changed. End of quote. He also wrote, "The truth will not be changed by our knowledge or by our ignorance." And we agree. In fact, no one really believes that there is no truth when it comes to physical realities such as medicine, mathematics, or the laws of physics.
So I just want to stop there. You notice how he's talking about the laws of physics and mathematics. Yes, that truth does not change.
All people believe that some things are true. Who of us would dare to ride in an airplane if we didn't believe that the laws of aerodynamics were absolute truth? Verifiable truths do exist. They surround us, and we stake our lives on them. Does the truth ever change? It does not. Our understanding of truth changes as we progress in understanding it.
I just want to say, notice the way he says truth. It seems like he just pay attention to the sound of his voice when he says it. It's a little different.
But the truth never changes. When Jesus said that our purpose in life was to talk about the truth, he was speaking of something that faithful Jews had valued for centuries. In their sacred writings, the Jews had long read of truth as something concrete, not theoretical. In the Bible, truth translates the Hebrew word emeth, which signifies that which is firm, solid, and perhaps most of all, reliable. End of quote. The Jews had good reason for viewing truth in that way. They called their God, Jehovah, the God of truth. This was because everything Jehovah said he would do, he did. When he made promises, he kept them. When he inspired prophecies, they were fulfilled. When he uttered final judgments, they were carried out. Millions of Israelites had been eyewitnesses of these realities. The inspired writers of the Bible recorded them as indisputable facts of history.
So I want to stop there for a second. So you notice how he started off talking about truth as far as the definition and things such as the laws of physics that are truth. But then he's now trying to, or he's segueing into the Bible now, that the Bible is undisputed facts of history. Now, I'm not here to debate religion or the belief in God, but the Bible itself cannot be on the same level as, say, truth as far as the laws of physics, because many things in the Bible are not true, and this is why it's up to interpretation. So, for example, the Bible says the earth was created in 7 days. Well, we know that's not true, but some will say, well, it didn't mean 7 literal days, not 7 24-hour days. And a lot of times when these contradictions are found in the Bible, that's how it's justified by different religions. Different religions will interpret things differently. Because some will say, well, when the Bible said that, it wasn't literal. So I'm not saying that the Bible is not true or true. What I'm saying is that because the Bible is up for or subject to interpretation, it can't be considered undisputed facts such as the laws of physics. But you see, because he kept repeating the word truth over and over and over, putting the witnesses in that hypnotic state, now whatever he says, as far as the Bible, they're going to take that as the Bible is the same as the laws of physics. And I also want to say that keep in mind, Jehovah's Witnesses, as soon as they start watching this talk, they're already brainwashed to think that a governing body member is speaking for Jehovah. So they're already more susceptible to the hypnotic trance that he's putting them in by repeating that word over and over and over and over.
Unlike other books viewed as sacred, the Bible is not set against a backdrop of myth or legend. It is firmly grounded in verifiable facts, historical, archaeological, and scientific, and sociological also realities. No wonder the psalmist says to Jehovah, "Your law is truth. All your commandments are truth. The very essence of your word is truth." Since Jehovah God is the author of the Bible is truth. Jesus Christ echoed the words of that psalm when he said in prayer to Jehovah, "Your word is truth." Jesus knew that everything his Father spoke was absolutely firm and reliable. Likewise, Jesus himself was full of truth. Yes, Jesus was even the personification of truth. The Mosaic law was truth, but it was not the full truth. Jesus taught something different from the Mosaic law. The Bible shows that the Mosaic law was a shadow or prophetic picture of greater realities which came through Christ. And so the Mosaic law was not the full truth, but a pattern of it. Jesus was not the shadow, but the reality. He said in John 14:6, I am the truth. But as far as teachings are concerned, what is truth? What helps us to understand it? The Bible speaks of the spirit of the truth. What is the spirit of the truth? It is the spirit that proceeds from Jehovah God. It is pure and holy. Jesus told his disciples at John 16:12 and 13, I still have many things to say to you, but you are not able to bear them now. However, when that one comes, the Spirit of the truth, he will guide you into all the truth, for he will not speak of his own initiative, but what he hears he will speak. And he will declare to you the things to come. God's Spirit would teach them everything they needed to know to carry out their work, recalling and opening up their understanding things that previously they heard from Jesus but had not understood. God's Spirit would also declare to them the things coming, including the bringing to light the significance of Jesus' death and resurrection, as these events were then yet future and were among the things that his disciples did not understand in the beginning. Brother Charles Taze Russell wrote the book, The Divine Plan of the Ages.
So he's going to quote what's considered apostate literature. The Divine Plan of the Ages is one of the books that Charles Taze Russell wrote that pretty much contradicts everything that the religion teaches now. In fact, any Jehovah's Witness that gets caught with this book, they're going to get accused of what apostate website were you on. So he's quoting a book that the organization has banned and is keeping it a secret from their members. This is a prime example of gaslighting. He's quoting a book that they don't want us reading.
It was published in 1886.
And I just want to correct myself. When I said they don't want us reading, I meant that when I was a Jehovah's Witness. I'm obviously not now.
It included a discussion on the Bible as a divine revelation viewed in the light of reason. It said, the depth and power and wisdom and scope of the Bible's testimony convince us that not man but Almighty God is the author. To appreciate the truth more,
and I just want to say, so if he's quoting Charles Taze Russell in the book, The Divine Plan of the Ages, then why did they ban the book? If it's good enough for him to still quote from it, shouldn't witnesses be allowed to read that book?
to what can we compare the truth? Truth is like a mirror that helps us to see the facts and, if necessary, to improve our looks. Truth is like a pillar, firm and supportive, and it helps to combat false teachings. Truth is also compared to a girdle or a belt that warriors used. It helps us to continue with right conduct. Truth is like a rainbow for beauty. Truth is as beautiful as the song of the nightingale. Truth is like a romantic bonfire for warmth on a cold evening. Here's an illustration that many of you will like. Truth is like the first cup of coffee in the morning, invigorating somebody. Yes, truth is invigorating. Truth is like a magnet, drawing honest-hearted ones to God. Truth is like an oasis in the desert. Truth is like an anchor in the stormy seas. Truth is like a lifeboat on a sinking ship. Truth is like a lighthouse in the night, guiding a boat safely to the shore or harbor. Truth is like a compass showing sailors the way. But it is also like a compass showing the way out of a jungle to a safe area. Truth is like the rising sun bathing the landscape in warm light. Truth is like the display of fireworks for beauty. Truth is like the magnetic shield around the earth, protecting it from deathly cosmic radiation. Truth is like light. The fruit of light consists in every sort of truth. He that does what is true comes to the light, the Bible says. Imagine you were born blind and received eyesight through an operation. Wouldn't you be elated? Truth is like that when somebody comes to know and appreciate it. Truth is like beautiful music played solo or by an orchestra. Truth is like the most delicious food for taste and gives strength.
And do you notice that he's talking to the audience like they're children? I mean, it sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. You remember the book, The Cat in the Hat Comes Back, or something like that, Green Eggs and Ham? He's talking like a Dr. Seuss character. Listen to the way that he's talking. And keep in mind, this is for adults. They claim to have 8 million members, which I doubt that number is accurate, but this is not for children, it's for adults. But notice he's talking to them like a Dr. Seuss book.
Truth is what a nursing mother is to her baby. Truth is like a hidden treasure. We need to dig for it. Truth is like refreshing water on a hot day. Truth is like a mighty river. If you try to stop it with a dam, it will overflow the dam. Nobody can stop the truth. Why? Because Jehovah the Almighty is backing it up.
And this is the segue to now start talking about their religion, which they call the truth.
Truth is like a flower or even a bouquet of beautiful little flowers. Brother Russell once wrote, quote, "Truth, like a modest little flower in the wilderness of life, is surrounded and almost choked by the luxuriant growth of the weeds of error. If you would find it, you must be ever on the lookout. If you would see its beauty, you must brush aside the weeds of error and the brambles of bigotry."
And I should have stopped a couple seconds earlier, but you notice he quoted Russell again. Why is he quoting Russell, but at the same time they ban all the books Russell wrote and they don't want their members reading any of Russell's books? But he's quoting Russell. That's gaslighting.
If you would possess it, you must stoop to get it. But not content with one flower of truth, had one been sufficient, there would have been no more. Gather ever, seek for more. Truth is like a fragrance or perfume. Truth is like a sparkling diamond. Do you love diamonds?
And you see, he keeps talking to the audience like they're children, like they're stupid, like the witnesses are so stupid. He's talking to them like they're children.
But the truth's value is so much more than diamonds because it brings Jehovah's friendship and leads to everlasting life. Truth is compared to a way on which we walk. 2 Peter 2:2 speaks of the way of the truth. God is a spirit, and those who worship him must do so with spirit and truth. Now is the time to study the truth and attend Christian meetings where the truth is taught.
And there you have it. You see, he started off talking about the definition of truth. things that are truth, such as the laws of physics, then by continuing to repeat this word over and over and over and over, getting them in a hypnotic state, he then switches it to the Bible being truth. And now by the end of the talk, which as you can see, he's said the word truth 90 times already within about a 12-minute period. Now the witnesses who don't realize they're in a trance at this point, they're going to believe that their religion called the truth is the equivalent as the laws of physics being absolute truth.
Do not miss congregation meetings. 1 Timothy 3:15 compares the congregation with a pillar of truth. The congregation preserves the purity of the truth and upholds it. True, Jehovah teaches us through the Bible, but also through Christian meetings. We are also to speak the truth by preaching. We speak the truth also with one another. We have the truth on our lips. We have the truth around our hips. Ephesians 6:14 says, we have the belt of truth fastened around our waist. The truth is the world is in utter confusion. What a blessing it is to know the truth. We rejoice in it. We are ready to preach the truth and teach the truth. Yes, we talk the truth and we walk in the truth. In 3 John verse 3, we read, go on walking in the truth. Those who walk in the truth now will walk forever. Micah 4:5 says, for all the peoples will walk, each one in the name of its God, but we will walk in the name of Jehovah our God forever and ever. And that is a long time. Help your students to love the truth and to live the truth, but if necessary, to be willing to die for the truth. And
well, there you have it right there, right? The blood transfusions. Make sure you're willing to die for the truth and for Jehovah.
For Jehovah. The truth is invincible and will conquer this wicked world. May we all, including our relatives and your Bible students, have the determination to walk in the truth and talk about the truth. Why shall we do this? Because we love the truth and we love the God of truth. We are also to live the truth by our Christian conduct. Brothers, this is the truth. His word is truth. Keep talking the truth and keep walking in the truth. Then you will walk forever and praise our loving God of truth.
So he said the word truth 120 times in 17 minutes. And notice what not brother, he's not my brother, but notice what David Splain says, how he describes the talk that brother or Garrett Loesch just given. Just notice what he says and ask yourself, is this an odd way to describe a talk or to tell another witness that it was a good talk? Listen to how he describes this talk.
Thank you for that absorbing presentation, Garrett. We really appreciated it.
Thank you for that absorbing presentation. Absorbing presentation. Now, for those who have never been Jehovah's Witnesses, you might not quite be aware on how suspicious that word is, saying absorbing presentation. Now, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I was what they call the public talk coordinator, which I had the responsibility of organizing all the public speakers that was in our congregation and all of our speakers and sending them out to other congregations. And with that assignment that I had, I was the first one to be notified if another congregation needed a substitute speaker. So I've given a lot of substitute talks. I've been scheduled a lot of talks. And when the organization went on Zoom, I was scheduling talks all over the United States through Zoom. So I've given talks in Connecticut, all the way to Utah, Tennessee. I've given talks all over the United States. Granted, it was on Zoom, but the reason I'm mentioning that is because of all the talks that I've given. I've never, ever, out of maybe 100 talks, had anyone after I'd given a talk say, that was a very absorbing talk. That's not JW language. And anyone that's ever been a Jehovah's Witness that has given talks, you know, nobody has ever come up to you and said, that was a good absorbing talk. That's not JW language. And when I was giving talks all over the United States, the language is the same, right? So when I given a talk in Utah versus Connecticut, I would get the same response. Usually it's, that was a good talk. I enjoyed that talk, brother. Oh, Jehovah's Spirit was really with you. That was just what I needed to hear. I really enjoyed your talk. I love your illustrations. Good talk. Great job. It's always the same language. No matter where you go in the United States or probably all over the world, you're getting the same feedback. It's the same language. And even for those who've never given talks, just Jehovah's Witnesses that given talks during a theocratic ministry school, ask yourself the same thing. When you've given a talk on a theocratic ministry school, has anyone ever come up to you and said, that was a very absorbing talk? And even sisters who've given talks, now technically they don't call it a talk because witnesses cherry pick the scripture when Apostle Paul said something about women shouldn't speak, and they use that to make sure women can't give talks. But basically, when women give demonstrations during a theocratic ministry school, most people will still consider a talk to give women that dignity because it is a talk. But even women that are watching this right now, if you were ever a Jehovah's Witness and you're a woman, when you'd given a demonstration, aka a talk, did anybody ever come up to you after and say, well, sister, that was an absorbing talk? That is not JW language. And even for all of us who maybe there was a speaker that we liked their talk and we walked up to them after and said, hey, that was a great talk. Have we ever had an urge to go up to a speaker and say, that was a very absorbing talk? That word is never used ever when it comes to a Jehovah's Witness giving a talk. It's very odd. And if there's any Jehovah's Witness watching this, you can test out what I'm saying. The next time you go to a meeting and you have your public speaker come on Sunday, go up to that speaker and say, that was a very absorbing presentation. And watch him look at you like you have two heads, because that is not at all language for telling a Jehovah's Witness that it was a good talk or you enjoyed the talk. So when I started about the word absorbing, I just had to look that up as far as hypnosis goes, because he said the word truth 120 times in a 17-minute period. So when I looked up the word absorbing and hypnosis, this is a couple of things that I found. So components of hypnosis, and as you can see, number 2, absorption. And I couldn't do a lot of deep research into this part because I really don't have time to read a lot of books on hypnosis. It's very in-depth. But in this one, you can see the very, like the title, it says absorption, hypnotizability. And I'm just going to go through a couple of these. So on this one, I notice hypnotic suggestibility. The most reliable correlate of hypnotizability is absorption. And then in this one, You can see where I have highlighted. For example, hypnosis happens naturally when your attention becomes focused and you become completely absorbed. So the word absorb or absorbing, it is connected to hypnosis, but it is not connected to telling another Jehovah's Witness that you gave a good talk. And this is a fact. Every Jehovah's Witness out there and every ex-JW out there knows that never in your life has anyone walked up to you after you've given a talk and said, that was a very absorbing presentation or talk. It's not JW language, but it is language for hypnosis. So I just thought that was a very unusual way for him to describe that talk. So I'm going to just theorize at this point on this, what I'm about to say. What I think is that this is secret language between him and Garrett Loesch. I think what this translates to is good job brainwashing them, Garrett. That was a very hypnotic presentation. That's what I think he's really saying in hidden language to Garrett Loesch. Good job brainwashing them. So the next problem with this talk is that he said the word truth 120 times within 17 minutes. Now, that is beyond him trying to emphasize the word truth. That's hypnotic. And you can just record yourself talking for 17 minutes or a conversation with somebody, and you're not going to say the same word 120 times in 17 minutes. And another thing about this 120 times within 17 minutes is that even if he was really trying to emphasize the word truth, anyone that's trained as a Jehovah's Witness with public speaking knows that you always have some sort of an outline and you rehearse it. So he would have noticed when he was preparing that talk, oh, wait a minute, I'm saying the word truth too many times. Like, you catch those things when you're preparing a talk, if you're repeating yourself way too much. So for him to put the word truth 120 times in a 17-minute talk is very deliberate. That's beyond anything else. So when I decided that I want to added a counter to this video, I had a feeling that if this is something hypnotic, it's not going to be some random number. Like, it's not going to be, he said the word truth 76 times or even 105 times. I had a feeling it would be something significant. It's going to be some sort of number that means something. That's just the hunch that I had. So when he stopped at 120, I thought that's an even number, and it's kind of like it's a very specific number. Again, it's not like 119 or 104 or something. It's 120 times. So I tried to look up, is there any connection between the number 120 and maybe putting someone in some sort of hypnotic state? So this is what I found. Now, if you notice on this page at the bottom where I have highlighted, it says, the fact is that we can naturally experience this trance-like state up to 120 times a day. And this is regarding hypnotherapy. And this one says near the top, did you know that you go in and out of a trance state 120 times a day? I just thought that's interesting because he just happened to repeat the word 120 times within 17 minutes. This one says, we're in and out of hypnosis 100 to 120 times a day naturally. Interesting. This one says, when we look back at ancient tribes, they would use the BPM 120 to 123 to hypnotize and perform ancient dance rituals. 120 BPM. That's interesting. And this last one, it was a question of some form, but where I've highlighted it says, is saying that repeating it 120 times will be 20% more effective than repeating it 100 times. So I don't really know. I got kind of confused when I was reading the whole conversation, but you can see there's some sort of connection between the number 120 and hypnosis. Now, I don't have time to basically spend hours going into this hypnotic stuff. I was searching for a couple of hours, but a lot of stuff is very complex, and this is way out of my field. So if anybody who's watching this video wants to do further investigation on the number 120 hypnosis, please let me know in the comments. But clearly, he specifically repeated the word 120 times in a 17-minute talk, and there's some sort of connection with the number 120 and hypnosis. So this is what he did just to summarize the talk. So keep in mind, anybody watching this who's an XJW or who's never been a Jehovah's Witness, you could have watched that and thought, well, how can this put somebody into a trance? But remember that Jehovah's Witnesses are already brainwashed before they watch this talk. They already are brainwashed to think that the governing body is speaking for Jehovah. So when these people speak, it is literally like when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the Ten Commandments. So everything that comes out of these governing body members' mouths, they take as coming from God. So they're already in that brainwashed state. So for them, and again, I noticed this when I was watching it with my wife at the time, how she was fully in Jehovah's Witness, and I was basically awake Jehovah's Witness. I could see that when she watched this talk, completely hypnotic, right? Because I was fully awake, I could clearly see it for what it was. So what he starts off doing is he talks about the definition of truth, right? And the truth never changes, which is true, such as he mentions physical realities, the laws of physics, a compass showing the way, like the magnetic shield around the earth. So he's mentioning things that are the definition of truth. Like those things are truth, period. It's not an opinion, it's truth. Those things don't change. So he starts off with speaking of truth in that way, the definition of truth. But again, by repeating it over and over and over to a bunch of people who are already brainwashed, anything he says, they're going to just take as truth. So then he makes the transition to the Bible being truth, right? He starts to quote the Bible, your word is truth. Those who worship him must do it with spirit and truth. But the Bible can never be considered the same level of truth as the laws of physics, which is why you have so many different interpretations of the Bible, because there are a lot of contradictions. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, there are things that aren't true, and this is why it's subject to interpretation. So people who believe in the Bible have to interpret things as, well, no, that's not literally what the Bible meant. And that's because the type of truth that's in the Bible cannot be considered the same level of the laws of physics. But Jehovah's Witnesses were in this trance-like state now because he keeps repeating the word truth. They're going to believe it just because Garrett Loesch is repeating it over and over and over and over. So now they believe that the Bible truth is the exact same as the magnetic field around the earth and the laws of physics, which that's not true. But they believe it's truth because they're in this hypnotic trance now. And then towards the end of the talk, this is where the main purpose of this talk comes in. You see, the Watchtower organization has three names: Watchtower Bible Tract Society, the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is what their letters say, and the Watchtower's unofficial name is The Truth. This is their unofficial name. You see, by calling it the truth for decades, that in itself is hypnotic because people will believe it's the truth just because it's been repeated for decades. And that's why many XJWs, such as myself, will sometimes still call it the truth by accident because that programming is still in our head that it's the truth. So the truth is Watchtower's unofficial name. But you see, now he blends in their religion that they call the truth at the same level as the laws of physics being truth, right? So some of the quotes he said is, what a blessing it is to know the truth. We are ready to preach the truth and teach the truth. Now is the time to study the truth. Help your students to love the truth and live for the truth. But it's necessary to be willing to die for the truth and for Jehovah. So by the end of this talk, and he's now up to the word truth probably like 90 times at this point, 90 to 100 times, they're now, because they're in that hypnotic trance state, the witnesses are walking away from this talk thinking that their religion, the truth, is the equivalent to the laws of physics being absolute truth. And what is the main purpose of this talk? Well, the main purpose of this talk and why they were put under this hypnosis is to convince them that the truth never changes. Watchtower is known for their changing doctrine. Every annual meeting, they change doctrine. This is why so many people left over the years. That book that he quoted from Charles Taze Russell, which is an example of gaslighting, everything Charles Russell spoke of in that book has been changed as far as their beliefs. That's why they don't even want witnesses having access to that book. So we know as XJWs that they always change the truth that they claim is from Jehovah. But this was the purpose of this talk, is by the end of this talk, witnesses are going to walk away from this talk thinking their religion, it never changes. The light gets brighter, right? Our adjustment and understanding changes, but it never changes. Their religion never changes. Their truth is the same as the laws of physics. You see, this is the purpose of their talk, to brainwash them. And this is why that witnesses will argue with you and say, no, it doesn't change. The truth doesn't change. No, it's just the light got brighter. They can't even see that it changes because they're brainwashed to believe that it never changes. So another thing interesting about this whole talk is that, and again, the dates are confusing, but if you look at the screen, you can see that it was the January 2023 is when this was released. So it's for the 2022 annual meeting where it gets confusing, but it's the January 2023. Now, what's interesting about this is that this was the January broadcast. And the very first talk in January that the organization put out was this talk, right? So starting off the new year, January 2023, the very first talk from headquarters that was released to the whole worldwide organization was this talk, that the truth doesn't change. So is that a coincidence that in 2023 you had huge changes? No more counting service time. You can now wear beards. And another change, I forget what it was, something about like at the very last minute, like people who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses can still be saved, something like that. So I don't think this is a coincidence. This is how they wanted to start the year January 2023 off, with this hypnotic session, convincing witnesses that the truth doesn't change. Oh, no, it doesn't change. We don't change anything, and it never changes. And that the truth is the equivalent, or their religion of truth is the equivalent of the laws of physics. And then you got that code language from Splain, right? Absorbing presentation. Never is a talk described as absorbing presentation. So if you're a witness watching this, I'm just curious, when you watch this talk, what notes did you take? What was the purpose of this talk? I know what the purpose of this talk was. It was a hypnotic session to convince you that the truth never changes when obviously it does all the time, or their so-called truth changes all the time. But if you're a witness, when you watch this, what was the point of that talk? What did you get out of it? What notes did you take? There was nothing to the talk. What did you learn from it? Nothing. That was a hypnotic session. Nobody says the same word 120 times in 17 minutes. So in the next video, I'm going to now show how this whole thing that Brother Loesch just did with the 120 times, their whole religion is based on what you just watched in this video. Everything. It's not based on the Bible, which most of us know this already, but what he did as far as repeating those things, that is why Jehovah's Witnesses believe the things that they believe. It's simply because it's repeated. It's repeated in a very hypnotic way. And in the next video, I'm going to break down how they hypnotically do this in their congregation meetings, in their Watchtower, assemblies and conventions, out in service. The whole structure is based on this one principle of repeating things. And once we can see that, you can see that that is the only thing holding this organization together, is this repeat. And this is why they stress so much, don't miss meetings, don't miss meetings, don't miss meetings, because once you step out of the meetings, you're not getting this hypnotic repetition over and over and over and over. And they know that. So in order to keep the witnesses in this trance, they want you at all the meetings, assemblies, conventions, out in service. They need you there to keep repeating these things. But I'm going to show you examples from their literature in the next video on how the whole religion, this is the basis of the brainwashing that's keeping them all in this hypnotic trance.